Hey, SpaceWatchers! This is Space Cafe Radio, your channel about trends, cool people, and real conferences. My name is Chiara Monter. I'm the event coordinator in our SpaceWatch.Global team. End of January this year, I was able to attend the 14th European Space Conference in Brussels. On the last day of the conference, I sat down with Will Marshall, co-founder and CEO at Planet Labs. Sitting in the slowly clearing meeting room, we talked about Planet's developments and Earth observation data contributing to sustainability and specifically to the European Green Deal. Enjoy! Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Great to have you back on SpaceWatch.Global. Know that last time you joined Torsten for his 33-minute format.
Yes, I remember the great conversation.
And I think a lot has happened since then, so it's really good to meet up and chat again. So
yes.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's delighted to be back.
Perfect. So we found out a couple of weeks ago, Planet was part of another incredible SpaceX launch. And what impact is it for Planet to now have 44 more Earth observation satellites up in orbit?
Yeah. So these are 44 of our latest and greatest. They're Super Dove spacecraft, so-called, because they have 8 spectral bands. They're producing 5 times more data than the prior generation of satellites per day for about the same cost. So we're continuing this Moore's law improvement of data generated, quality of data generated per unit cost. What's the upshot of this? What really matters is the upshot of this to users. So what this really helps with is we've got a bunch more spectral bands that help with agriculture. One of our biggest market areas is agriculture. So our data is used to improve crop yields, reduce fertilizer use, precision agriculture it's called. And these extra spectral bands just help with that even more. So we have a red edge band, for example, that helps the calibration of quantity of crop type and crop yield that enables our precision ag. And that's really important to our users because, again, it can improve crop yield, which increases profitability for those farmers. It's also important for sustainability because when we encourage sustainable agricultural practices like reduced tilling or using cover crops, that can pull down carbon as well as increase biodiversity in those areas. And that's super important as well. So it's a twin agenda, digitization of the agriculture but that's just one and sustainability. That's just one application.
Okay, that's a very important factors to focus on. And I do also see it's nice to constantly improve the technology. Yes. But looking at the number of current and planned observation satellites in space, is there a point of saturation? And, is there a point where we maybe have enough satellites for this purpose?
Roughly speaking, from our perspective, we've mainly got the satellites up that we need. We've got these 2 fleets, the scanning fleet, that we were just referring to as doves, and then the high-resolution fleet. We have 21 high-resolution satellites that can focus in at 50-centimeter resolution. And that system is really a combination between those 2 systems and our analytics is what completes, if you like, this capability. There are a lot of new satellites, and you could say that maybe there's some saturation, but I don't think so. I think we're really expanding the market of opportunities. So we used to, prior to Planet and the Sentinel system, so 10 years ago, there was really just Landsat. And Landsat was not frequent enough or high enough resolution. And now with this flood of new data, you could go, well, maybe it's too much. No, it's not. Farmers, like we were just talking about, want data multiple times per week during the crop growing season to improve their crop yields. They don't want it once a month, and they don't want it at 30-meter resolution. They want it higher resolution, and they want it frequently. I could go on to other applications in forestry. You need the data quickly after the deforestation, otherwise you can't stop it. If you're trying to monitor maritime regions, you want to stop illegal fishing quickly, so on. With maps, you want to keep them up to date. We work with Google on keeping Google Maps up to date. You want that up to date frequently. So the quantity of data is what enables these more action-orientated things. In fact, I think that's the general evolution of Earth observation. We've gone from an era of awareness of climate, they underpinned all of our climate models, to action, where they are enabling us to take day-to-day action. Those farmers, that Coast Guard stopping illegal fishing, or yourself on your maps, either way, you're taking more action that's based on the most recent data.
So do you think this demand for this action is going to just steadily increase? So that there's also a need for more satellites? Or
yes, absolutely. I think we're in a huge expansion of these market opportunities. We've estimated over $100 billion market based on Earth observation data that we're building. It's a huge market opportunity. When you look at the market reports, they will say it's 5 or 10 billion, or maybe it's growing to 15 billion. They completely miss almost all the applications that we're currently selling. We did just over $100 million in revenue last year. It's now public information because we've just turned a public company, so I'm not telling you any secrets. The biggest set of that was in agriculture, and that's you barely touched in these reports because they haven't been thinking about it, because data from satellites hasn't really been useful for agriculture because it's higher resolution and they didn't have the coverage. Agriculture is 25% of the land mass of the Earth. Landsat wasn't high enough resolution, and so agriculture wasn't a big user of satellite data before. Now it's a massive user of satellite data. So really, what does that mean? We're expanding the pie. We're making the pie of Earth observation market much bigger. Whole new classes of users.
And how do sustainability and the rapid also shareholder value-driven growth work together? Is there a sweet spot that you're looking to find?
We like to think so. We just went public as a public benefit corporation, partly with this in mind. We really care about our mission. We consider the Planet a mission-driven company. We care about the planet. I mean, you just asked about sustainability. That is not a side matter for Planet. That is the core of why we began the company. Luckily, and we think that our business model of selling data and information services on the top of our data is completely compatible with our sustainability objectives, i.e. our business objectives and our impact objectives are aligned. Going public as a public benefit corporation actually writes in our mission into the DNA of the company, so that our directors and management have to take into account both the shareholder value and other stakeholders, like our community of users, and our mission. And they actually is affirmative obligation. Now, you asked about sustainability. Obviously, that is core to everything we're trying to do. There's a number of areas. Let me just focus on the European Green Deal, for example. They have 5 big priorities. Satellite data is relevant to all of them. Greening the common agriculture policy. The data is incredibly relevant to, especially in countries that have smaller farms, like in Portugal and Austria. The sentinel data isn't quite high enough resolution. Our data plus the sentinel data does something that isn't possible with either alone. And so we're combining our data with Copernicus data, and that data is very useful for greening common agriculture policy. But it's also protecting biodiverse regions, sustainable fisheries, monitoring and stopping illegal deforestation. And there's one other priority, I forget the 5th, but there's pretty much Earth observation data is relevant to all of the 5 priorities of the Green Deal.
And now looking at Earth observation, because we are somewhat witnessing an Earth observation data revolution.
Yes.
And this revolution was started and led by what you mentioned, the European flagship program, Copernicus. So what do commercial companies bring to the table?
As I just mentioned, I mean, those data sets are very complementary. What we particularly bring to the table is higher frequency and higher resolution. And that's very complementary with the Copernicus system, which is higher radiometric accuracy and scientific validity, if you like. The combination is where it's at. There's some places where sentinel data alone is good enough. There's some places where our data alone is good enough. But most of the use cases are in the middle, where the 2 data sets combine to something more powerful. In agriculture, their radiometric accuracy, combined with our spatial resolution, is what enables smallholder farms to do precision agriculture. With one or the other, you can't do it. Or at least the data set gets much more valuable combined. Academic research has shown this, that it's not just a theoretical idea. Same in forestry. Actually, with forestry, our data set is more unique on its own because we can actually tell crowns of individual trees, and 40% of deforestation is the individual tree level. So our data set is very complementary to Copernicus in the EU in pushing the agenda. It really helps generally with the acceleration of that agenda, I would say.
So collaboration is key.
Public-private partnerships and collaboration, that's where it's at.
Thank you so much. I have one final question, which you've already touched on a bit, which is, could you tell us more about what Planet Data can do to help Europe in its sustainable transition? And you've mentioned the Green Deal, but maybe you can expand on that.
Well, I think that's the heart of it, right? The Green Deal is an ambitious program to transition the European Union and the European economy to a sustainable economy. And what does that mean? Well, it means tracking natural capital. It means protecting biodiverse regions. It means sustainable fishing, sustainable farming. And satellite data is critical to that. I've mentioned a couple of areas where our data is particularly relevant, like common agricultural policy and deforestation monitoring. We also, just finally to touch on, building a third fleet of satellites that we just announced last year called Carbon Mapper, which are hyperspectral satellites. And they'll be able to pinpoint methane and CO2 point source emissions down to the facility level, 30 meter. And that's probably the two biggest pushes in the climate conference in Glasgow last year. One was in protecting and stopping deforestation in collaboration with 130 countries around the world pledged to end deforestation. Well, Europe itself has to do that first to be a good steward, and satellite data can help with that. And the second one was on tracking methane and stopping methane leaks, because there's a new greenhouse gas that people hadn't completely understood the import of. Satellite data can help with finding those facilities, help tell them what to do to reduce methane emissions. So I hope our data in future will be able to help with that big goal too.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. And
no worries at all.
We are definitely looking forward to hearing more outstanding news in the future.
Thanks very much for the time.
This was the end of this episode, but please don't forget to check out the full program of Space Cafe Radio, where we offer interviews, insights, and editorial comments on the space sector. I am Chiara, event coordinator at SpaceWatch.Global. Thank you all very much for listening. And with that, I leave you for today. And don't forget, become a space watcher. Bye!